You,
School.
you were teaching, right?
Yeah.
You were teaching
In,
the officers
Right.
That's where we were.
Camp Davis.
in Camp Davis. Okay, let me see. Okay, we're going.
Well, we had what turned into be the last of our experiences in Camp Davis. The Battle of the Bulge interrupted our lifestyle. So anyway, we were given the options of what part of the service we wanted to get into. You know, some chose the infantry and the paratroopers and the Air Corps and the whole thing, tank groups, whatever. I chose to stay with the anti-aircraft group. So, as I may have mentioned before, I fit in with the, not fit into so much as join an aircraft group that were stationed on the West Coast. And of course they were needed in more for show, I think, you know. So we could say we had 1 million men on the European continent type of thing. And so anyway, we went through the whole mess of training or retraining, as it were, for those people. For me, it was the first training. I never had any. But we, you know, we got along together and we fit in okay. There was a little resentment, well, because we're all different ranks, you know, and everybody was afraid of what it was going to do to their ranking type of thing. In fact, the gunner corporal of our gun group, why, he got, I guess it must have been working on him a little bit, because we were all setting up the gun, and I may have made a suggestion or something of that nature, but he flared up, and if you want to man this gun crew, he says, it's all yours. I don't, you know, I don't want to get into that. And I just calmed down. I says, I don't know one end of this damn thing from the other. I said, I can help you make one. I said, but I don't know what you know, what your training was or what your background was. So he settled down, and that took care of that part. I relieved his mind, I guess. And, you know, later on in years when I was trying to talk Mary out of going into the service, I recalled, you know, the way the services operated And I try to convince her that, you're just a person. And I don't care if they give you a contract or what they give you. The fact of the matter is that you're gonna go exactly where they want you to go. And nothing else, you know. And I had the two sergeants that, came to the house with this interview, and they admitted to it, yeah, you know, sometimes things happen,
Oh, this was with Mary?
but she wasn't about to listen at that time. All she knew, she thought it was her chance to get away and do what she thought she wanted to do at that time. And she did, she was, but anyway, we did our training in the Gulf of Mexico, so we could fire over the water and not hit any civilians type of thing, and we had a little differences of opinion there. But as I said, as luck would have it, a couple of the officers that were platoon officers at that time, I had for students, you know, and they remembered, and we never talked about it, you know, like, where'd you, no way, you know. So, anyway, I think I was probably as old as they were, maybe a little older, you know, like about 6 months or a year. But they let me get away with a lot of stuff. You know, I mean, they, and not any warnings about it or anything, they just did their job, and as you know, they wanna overlook something, they just slough over it, you know. And I understood that. So, I put the bumps in the road a few times, but we got through it. And then we finally got orders to, that were going overseas. They didn't say overseas, it's elsewhere.
Elsewhere.
So they had given us like almost a complete new outfit of equipment and clothing, and we're trying to figure out, you know, part of our outfit was almost, well, it was similar to what we had, it was just different, newer. And so we finally come all the way to the East Coast, and we shipped out of Fort Dix, that area.
Did you get any leave before you shipped over? Could you come home?
No, I don't think so. I may have, I don't know. But I wasn't one to, you know, take advantage, even when I was in school, in Camp Davis, I had, you know, a lot of weekends, that could be sort of stretched a little. like it wasn't a case of like flying
No.
home, it was a case of getting on a train, and the trains were, like every time a troop train went by, like, your train was put at a side heap and you waited till that was done with. So anyway, as a consequence, I went home a couple times, and I like made do with what I had, and I was comfortable with it, you know. So all I could see in my head was, you know, the arriving and departing, and your sort of rips off.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, they put us on the Queen Mary, and our gun outfit was set up on deck of the Queen, and so we had sort of luxurious travel, you know, compared to the regular troops who were down in the hold and packed like rats. But it took us, you know, we went across without escort because the ship was fast, and you know, they sort of zigzagged across, but it took a short time to get across. And we went to Southampton in England, or Wales. It's sort of a kind of on the Buffalo situation, you know. So. And I wasn't that interested in what was happening or where I was. I wasn't in the United States. I was out of the States, and you know, like what's next? And the girls from one of the sort of Red Cross type of organization come up, and they gave us hot meat pies. Never had a meat pie in my life, but I was hungry. I didn't have too much trouble eating. So then they put us on and I really don't recall if we went by trucks or train, but they brought us up into England, not too far from London. It was a what do they call it? Like a cathedral town.
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
and they put us in these Quonset huts. It was damp and cold, and it was December, and it was, the British Isle is, well, you know, people used to say they're always carrying umbrellas, you know. I said, even before I was there, you know, I says, it's an island, it's still an island, and it, you know, you get a rain squall without, I mean, they go golfing, they got their Mackinaws on, they got their umbrellas handy type of thing. But anyway, we had the experience of living in, like roughing it, you know. We were used to the protection of the barracks and heating of the barracks, and our mess hall was all set up all the time and all that. We had meals indoors. Now we're on the boondocks, as we call it. And we had to make do, you know, we had any comforts that we got were of our own making. I mean, we had to, like we had to build our own fires in the Quonset huts and that. And that was one of my first embarrassments, really. Like the first morning that we were there, you know, the Quonset hut is cold, and we're all standing there shivering, and everybody's looking around for some paper to start a fire type of thing. And I was a great bonfire builder, you know, way back when, but we had paper, you know, and that's the way I did it. And that's where we used to roast our potatoes and stuff. But anyway, we had a lumberjack from Oregon, and he come in. He was he wasn't a tall man. He was like a roly-poly type of guy, you know, and he spent his life in the woods, as it were, and he come up to me, and he says, "Why haven't you got a fire? Nobody's got any paper to burn, you know, to start the fire." And he says, "Oh, for gosh sakes," he says, "you don't need paper to start a fire." And he got out his knife and he whittled some shavings off of it. I felt like an ass. But anyway, we got fire going, and I put in my memory column about how to start a fire. But it's funny, you know, well, we always do stuff like that anyway. We had no connection of using an idea or a process and shifting it over to another problem area, you know, and it just sort of, it's mind-boggling. So anyway, I still revert back to that kind of thinking, you know. I don't have this, what could I use to replace it, you know, because I'm not going out to get it and for whatever reason. And anyway, we did the job, and we had to wait for our guns to arrive, because they gave us new guns and new trucks and new everything. Oh yeah, they did everything up front, you know. The manufacturers weren't going to get gypped out of what they manufactured. So when they came, they were all covered with what we call creosote, you know, to keep them from rusting. And of course, we didn't have a heck of a lot of stuff that was available or loose for cleaning guns, so we did it mostly with cold water.
Oh.
And there was, we were in sad shape, you know, I mean, like roughing it in the midst of civilization. But I never called England or the British Isles civilization. I couldn't, I read so much about England, and you know, I knew they were so dead set in a lot of their ways. They didn't have any, what I call progress, you know, they were, and it's not, they were, what happened with England is they were very strict in their ways of putting people in their places, you know. I mean, there were definitely, you were a chimney sweep, and you didn't dare get out of that, you know. You were a rebel if you tried it. And the people there were really pushed down, and it looks a lot worse from our point of view because there are so many people on such a small piece of land, you know. It's a sad situation. But like, you know, you used to read a lot about the Robin Hood and stuff like that, the knights, but in the telling of those stories, they always had part of a non-story fill in all the time, you know, and they'd sneak in a few sentences of the real woe of the commoner, you know. I mean, and then I got on the backs of the monarchs, and the hell are they keeping them around for? I mean, such a waste of time and money, you know. Especially when next door is real poverty. I mean, destitution, you know. But anyway, when we got our guns, and we got orders to take a little trip to Le Havre, France. And of course the war had gone on through there just recently, you know. So part of our trip was, it was snowy and wintry, and we'd go down the road and they'd have dead soldiers piled up like cordwood along the road waiting for pickup and disposal, you know. And so we got up through France, and we finally got into Germany, you know. And like when we crossed the border into Germany, I felt like I was in the United States again. I mean, it was that, and I was, you know, out in the country. It wasn't in any cities or anything. I just felt the difference between England and France and Germany was really tremendous. I mean, just the air of the place, you know. But anyway, we had to set up our guns pretty close to the border. And we went from the clay of Texas to the loam of, it was a matter of minutes. You had a gun emplacement and you know, all done, your foxholes dug out and the whole damn thing. And so we no sooner got the gun in and a couple planes come from Germany way, and they were far enough away that we couldn't quite make out, because we were trained in silhouettes and the whole crap, you know, but there's such a similarity to me that I couldn't make out what the heck they were, but all I knew is that I had, you know, was at the gun at the time, and I got into my seat. I was in a, what do we call a, sort of a horizontal tracker, and the guy on the other side of the gun was a vertical tracker, and I'm sitting, you know, on my side of the gun. I swung it over to, you know, where, toward the planes coming in, you know, and I find myself alone in the, you know, so I took the gun, I turned it so I was behind the gun. The gun was in between me and the, you know, the side of the gun was in between me and the planes. I thought, well, you know, they're gonna fire on us, so I just maybe nothing would penetrate the gun itself, because it had quite a wide body, really. And nobody else got on the gun. But when the planes passed, they happened to be the American. And then, you know, Monday morning quarterbacking comes in, and some officer come up and he questioned, you know, what the sergeant saw, the gun sergeant saw, and all of that. And he said, well, yeah, I figure about 2,000 feet, and I'm thinking, you know, he was like a ward healer from California, you know, it was, and but anyway, so I told them, the whole gang of them, I says, you know, you people spend all your time in training and what to do if this happens and that happens. I says, I didn't feel comfortable sitting on that gun. You know, I came here to protect whatever I had to protect, type of thing, and I said, next time I'm gonna turn the damn thing on you guys. That just happens. But it, I mean, they got the message all right, but it was a case of, you know, they talk about casualties, you know, and now you're getting into saying, but most of that is because they really aren't doing what they were trained for. I mean, they were, everybody thinks they want to be a hero or what. There's no heroes. Just some ass that got caught in a crossfire or something, and he reacted to the occasion, and after he was lucky, he got out of it, and now he's a hero, you know. But the ass went in, the ass come out, that's all. So like, when I left for the service, my dad told me, he says, just don't be nosy, you know. He says, like the trouble will come to you, you don't have to go far, you know. And of course, he was in the war of trenches at the time, and we saw a lot of those too. We're lucky we didn't have to use them. But so we just proceeded, you know, according to orders, we moved our gun up, and it was like a constant. Like I said, we were with Pat, and he was on the move, and he wasn't really stopping for anything. And he was chasing like an army that was tired of war, and our platoon officer, of course, he's got to come and check and see where we're set up actually, the whole thing, and tries to give us a little idea of what, where we are and where the enemy is, type of thing, because you're going mostly through forest areas, you know. Like, we didn't get into the cities too much, we passed them, but we were concerned with aircraft flying over, you know, and trying to keep them off of any of our troops, wherever they were. So we're into it quite a little while, and finally we were getting up near Czechoslovakia, and we set up our guns, and he's out there, and he's talking about you know, where the enemy is, and he said, you might have to be using this gun on personnel, you know, instead of airplanes. And he says, you don't know, you gotta keep your eye on the force. If anybody breaks through or comes your way, why, you gotta be ready for them. And I asked, just where exactly is the enemy? And he says, well, like I told you, you know, they may be coming for that. I said, where else are they? Well, you've got enemies to the right of you, you got them to the left. And I said, you've got them behind us too, haven't we? He said, yeah. I said, well, you know, let us know. Don't try to whitewash the damn thing. I mean, give us an idea what, but again, I'm talking to an officer that I knew, and he knew me, and he gave me the courtesy of answering at least. I caught him by surprise too, you know. The fact of the matter is that that's part of the crap of military, you know. And that's why they give you that stuff of, you're not really saluting the man, you're saluting the uniform, you know. And I thought, well, that's one way of covering up a pile of crap. But it's true, you know, because I said so, you know. That's the way I brought these kids up. You know, they try it to the nth degree, you know. And I tell them, I says, I could beat you up. I says, that wouldn't be a big problem for me. But I says, all you're gonna go through life is you're gonna be beaten up by everybody you come up against. And I don't want you to be like that. I want you to be able to talk back and fight back, you know, and just use your head. And Pat, he wouldn't get in a fight. Like he'll go around the city before he walk into a fight, just to get away from it. Gerard's a little more, you know, offensive insofar as, like, he's not gonna let him get away with that type of thing. And I could care less, you know, in my attitude. I could care less what he thinks he's getting away with, but don't cross my path again. You know, but the thing was that, you know, like the way we were moving, we were constantly passing troops in the night, enemy troops. They're going one way or we're going the other, type of thing. You know, like I say, they're up to here with war, and they're just looking for a way to stay out of trouble, really. We got past, we went through a little town, and one of the areas where we passed the enemy coming the other way at night, and I told our sergeant, I said, you sure you understood your orders? Yeah, you know. I says, well, those trucks that just went through are full of Germans, and they're armed, you know, the whole bit. And he says, well, I didn't notice that. Well, I says, well, I did, because I sat in the tailgate of our truck, you know, and so anyway, he says, well, that shouldn't be right. I was told that. I says, well, I just telling you what I saw. I says, we better go back to where we know our people are, you know, and get reordered or whatever, see what the hell's going on. So, the only thing, you know, they had the country roads, right? Mm-hmm. And he gets out in this farm, and he's got around size 12 shoes or 13 something. But he gets out on the ground and he walks on it, and this should take the truck, you know. And I told him, I said, you better be sure you're later in the truck. In fact, we got going, and I said, Sarge, you gotta use your head. I said, they give you orders and all that stuff. I said, but, they're not God or anything. I says, if you smell a rat someplace or you see something, you know, now it's you. It's not your commanding officer or anything else, because he's not with you, and you're not gonna be able to hold your hand type of stuff. And then you're responsible for us, you know. So, I said, to tell you the truth, I said, if you don't start using your head, you're gonna blow it off. And I don't go for that crap, because I know he didn't have that kind of thing, you know, he's like I say, he was a war dealer from, and he was trying to please whoever he was working for or with. So, anyway, so we got back out of that. And I'm, you know, I'm thinking, well, the talk going around is that we're gonna start getting into the mountains, you know. And of course, everybody knew about the mountains and Purchase Garden and the whole schmear. And I'm thinking, if that propaganda is true about their going to use the mountains as their last stand type of thing, if it gets that bad, why, I don't want to be on the bottom and they're on top, you know. And I start thinking, that's when I started thinking seriously of, just maybe I better get ready to take off for Italy. And at least, you know, I know I got a couple relatives who are still alive there, and but as it turned out, the war ended, just near the border of Czechoslovakia, I'm pretty sure. Some, a small town, and so we took over, I don't know if it was that town or the one close to it, but we used the homes for our shelter, and like we made our own bivouac out there, you know, so. We got through that thing. Now we went through the usual red tape thing when the war was over, and we wound up at like the North Sea, and so we waited there for better than a couple of months, waiting for our numbers to come up, you know. And none of us knew exactly where we might be going, because, you know, Japan was still fighting, so. Then we had the debates about whether Truman made the right. So what are you thinking about, if he made the right thing? In fact, I was thinking now, you know, with all this crap going on in the East, they may wind up, yeah, you know, they're not gonna dig these people out, and they're gonna have that hassle. And I keep insisting that they gotta keep people there, and they're gonna find the excuse of, well, they're gonna pull a Truman and clean a whole lot of stuff out. But it's, So it needs a nut, you know, to get going with that, or a real, you know, patriotic type person, because, you know, we're losing men constantly, and they're headquartered here, we've got a pretty good idea. So they gotta forget about the oil fields, you know, which is going to be the deterrent there. So, it's, so whatever. You're not gonna ask me. So we finally got a ship to come home. It wasn't the Queen Mary. That ship took us, I think 14 days across. And it was seasick soldiers all from one end to the other. So it was one of those victory ships, I think they call them. But actually, when we went through the channel, the English Channel, it was a stormy trip, and we drove almost the whole way from England to New York. It was seasickness from stem to stern. But, you know, and when you get into that kind of, like, when I got through this channel, I was still A-okay, you know, and then all of a sudden everybody's heaving their guts. Yeah. Not having been a mother, I don't know all of it. So we got back into the States, and of course we didn't have any parades or anything. We just were given train fare home, which is just as well. But the idea was that, you know, it wasn't too long after I got home that I met Jean, and we sort of took to each other, and I had to go through that Italian-Irish thing. So then when my mother-in-law died, we brought the father-in-law over here. Nobody wants him. Who the hell wants an old man? No, you know, and I thought she loved her father. So the family was hemming and hawing about what they're gonna do with Dad, you know, Dad. Nobody wanted to know that interfere with their social life and all of that stuff, you know. So I brought him here, and he teased the kids. I threatened to send them to the cellar to eat. So we got along, you know, pretty well, considering the introductory times, you know, and the feelings. But
Was it difficult in the beginning? Was it difficult accepting in the beginning?
I wouldn't make anything difficult. I wouldn't allow it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I went with the flow. I didn't antagonize anyone.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't, allow anyone to push, you know, so. I used to say it takes a couple asses to fight. No, and
Not just
I don't want, I'm not the one. You shy one. Yeah, I was, you know, and, you know, you're dealing with, two families all the time, so. You see the good, the bad, and the whatever. Then I decided before I even landed in the United States again, that I'm gonna do absolutely nothing for a year.
Good
You
idea.
know, I made up my mind that they said that I could get like a year's unemployment. I said, that's how long I'm gonna be idle. I do what I want. In fact, it was it was pretty close to.
Got you off the screen. There we go.
It was pretty close to the end of my unemployment insurance. We had a date to, me and my two cousins had a date to go to Pennsylvania because the one cousin by marriage lived over here on Delwood, and we were going to go to Pennsylvania because his uncle had a big Lincoln in his garage, convertible. I mean a big Lincoln. It would be almost the length of this block here. You know,
Was it pre-war Lincoln, 1939,
1933, I think it was around 1933. All aluminum, chrome that you wouldn't believe, all leather interior, the whole thing. So we went down and got it. He had it in the garage home, so we went down, so I got involved a little with that. And we went down in the Chrysler, and when we got down there and looked over the situation, then we decided that we're gonna tie the two cars together, bumper to bumper, and my cousin had cleaned out the carburetor in the car because it was sitting for a while and got it going. And so we used the Lincoln to tow the Chrysler home. You know, we had a license on it. So we made the trip with Siamese twins. So we got home, and then it was it was still an era of trying to keep it running, because go around the block, you have to put more gas in the tank. There's a humongous motor on it. we had a date like for this weekend to go down, and we were downtown for something. I thought, while I'm down here, I'll drop into General Mills and see if I can put a application in for a job, you know. So I went in and they put my application in, they gave me a physical and the whole schmear. In this case, they were hiring for the night shift, especially veterans.
Okay.
So I put the application in. When I got home that day, which was around 3 or 4 o'clock, my mother told me that General Mills called up. As, for what? Because you gotta go to work tonight at midnight. So that blew that last trip to Pennsylvania.
Did it take a while to settle down once you came home?
Not really.
No?
No, I just like flowed into it, you know. I wasn't expecting anything tremendous, and I was happy to be home, you know. And, but I treated the whole thing as an experience, and it was for me.
Yeah.
'Cause I had a lot of friends and relatives that were in it, you know, and they were in the bad part of it all the time there. And I saw, like, when we were driving through Germany, I saw a lot of the activities that these people were in, you know, the infantry, deploying into cities and looking like a bunch of bums that were dragged off the street and told to run. But I was happy I wasn't gung-ho that I wanted to get into the war, as it were, you know. And it's a case of, you know, experiencing a lot of it and seeing what happens. And a lot of it, like I said, I did a lot of reading, so I went through the Revolutionary War and the Civil War and the whole thing. I mean, because I read all of it, you know, and I experienced all of it, and it was, like a lot of it wasn't any surprise to me, you know, it was a reenactment of my books, you know, so it helped a lot there. So, you know, I had experiences that I just made the best of, you know, for me and the group I was with. I don't know if I mentioned the time we were set up on the side of the Rhine River. We set up our guns, and it was near a crossing that the engineers had put up pontoon bridge in and the whole thing. And we were providing air cover if it was necessary type thing. But it it just kept coming. It coming truckloads of supplies and ammunition, food, the whole darn thing. And I was on sentry duty, like after midnight and closer to the morning. So I had like 3 hours or something. And so I'm standing there, and these trucks are passing me, and it just gotten. I was put on center duty across the river, you know, and just to see that the trucks kept flowing, you know, but it didn't take me long to realize that with all that traffic and over farmland, as it were, these trucks were just a little lower than I was, where I was standing, you know, because they were in the ruts and the whole thing. And so toward the end of my shift, I decided that the trucks that were there passing, because they couldn't drive fast, they were crawling, you know, is full of K rations, you know, and C rations. So as they passed by, I took a couple cases of each truck, and I just threw them behind me. And my sergeant says, what are all these cases here for? I says, I got them, you hide them. I said, don't get us in trouble. I said, you hide them. I says, spread them around with the other guys, their tents, or, you know. I says, cover them with a couple tarpaulins and whatever. I says, we may need them. So he finally got it through his head that he better do it, because he's going to be in trouble anyway. But I must have wound up with around 24 cases. But we had, you know, extra stuff around all the time. And I'm sure some of the guys traded it with the enemy.
Oh, you did talk about one time when some Germans came in fully armed to surrender.
Oh yeah, that was pretty close to the end of the war. They just walked in, and they all were armed, and they had to find somebody that they could surrender to. And like this little corporal that had the set to was about the gun, you know, he was searching these guys, and you never see such a nervous little twerp in all your life. I mean, here the guys come in, and we're all more or less, you know, what? We're available there, we're armed, and we're watching, and we're keeping an eye on, well, he's searching them, and I doubt if he never really gave a good search, you know. But they got their sidearms and their rifles and whatever they had on them. And then of course it was a case of, who to contact to give all this stuff over to, plus the prisoners. But they're like, you know, like when you're working, you, and existing as it were, you, if somebody asks you just what happened today, you know, and as part of the, and that's the way I looked at it. And, I mean, I didn't dwell on what could have happened. I'm sure I thought of it, but I didn't. Like, so what? I mean, why talk about it now? It's over with, you know. You want to write a book, write it down. But it, we had a lot, you know, and then like I was saying, you know, when I went to work, it's a midnight shift and everybody that is anybody's home sleeping. And so now I'm thrown in with a bunch of people that, like I say, most of them were from the military. The male, I don't think we had too many female at that time from the service. But most of the crews were made up like anywhere from 300 to 400 women, you know, and they used to run the equipment and handle the light hauling type of thing. But I wasn't there very long, and I'm trying to figure out how come they got so many people working, you know, on that shift. And it had to come into, during the war, it was a big problem holding people in General Mills, because they paid so little in comparison to,
Defense.
you know, to the industries outside for war. But anyway, they were the first job that I was assigned to was like a caser on a dry egg line. They were canning dry eggs for England. And when you got on the end of one of those lines, you saw enough commercials where these packing lines, they travel fast, you know. So now you're working with these cans. They were the size of like a juice can. So, you know, after a while your wrists are like, should I walk off now, or no, I better not. I was planning to go to work for General Mills for a long time. You know, because I figured I'm not going to get into a manufacturing type situation. I was in. I had a job waiting for me. And when I went to tell them, you know, I wasn't coming back, the old foreman I had, he introduced me to a brand new milling machine that I was supposed to take over. I told him, I said, Joe, because the place was still, you know, a smoggy looking shop.
Mhm.
I said, you know, I appreciate what you're doing, and I certainly would like to come back and work for you, but I just can't stand the surroundings.
It was hard to breathe.
So, yeah, well, it didn't affect me noticeably, but I'm sure it wasn't helping. But on top of that, I lost whatever years I had working and the time in the service, you know, vacation, and the pay was decent, a lot better than that General Mills, you know. But my thinking was that I lived with a man that raised a family during the Depression, and when I went to Columbus McKinnon, they were just starting to, they were on their way to adding people to starting up line, but I talked to, like my foreman included, who was sort of young compared to a lot of the guys older guys that worked there. But that place worked all through Depression with a skeleton crew, like, you know, like you'd get an order in for chains or hooks or whatever, hoists, and a guy take the order for what, 5 or 6 units to be made up, and he took it from the start to right through the whole thing, right to crating it up, you know. And I knew that, and then you know, just the idea of working in that kind of a place, I wasn't happy with. So I traded one for the other. I thought, you know, if I want to work and get a steady paycheck, I gotta get into the food industry. That's where you know, I mean, they gotta keep going. So that's the way I did it. And it took me a little while to, like my idea of my own, you know, vocation, as it were, was to get into an area where, like, I'm going to have to be needed, and I want to learn it, and I want to learn it all the way through, you know, the history of it, and what is coming. And so I got into it, and I learned it by hook or crook, and because you know, during that time, you went in with these old operators and mechanics that were working. There wasn't any way you're gonna learn from them. They're not gonna tell you, because now you are you're a competitor. You know, so they're not about, so I used to play them against each other. So I don't know if they even realized it, but the fact of the matter is that each one of them had a, like a favorite job that they knew well, and they did it well. And the rest of it was like a cover-up time, you know. They got along, and but I used to play one against, and they were competitive themselves before I got there, you know. So I tell one that, you know, that one of the other two guys showed me something, and I did exactly the way they told me, and it still doesn't seem right to me. But my thing was, I knew they could get that equipment going, and each one of them had their own way of doing it. So I learned everything from what the old guys did, from the worst to the best, you know. And I got into the habit of talking to the operators and not created any problems there. And each one was able to tell me, you know, how they got out of problems, you know, and that's what I kept in my head. It was my own.
That was your school.
And when I became a supervisor, one of the, well, even as a mechanic, the guys be vivid, you know, if an operator tried to tell them what to do, you know. And I tell them, listen to them, they're operating that machine, you know, and good, bad, or indifferent, they have little tricks that they use to keep it going. And I says, learn them. But, I mean, you don't want to work, you want to service them, you know. And you do your job and you go home rested and you can do what you have to do. That's what I used to do. I was, at that time, we got this house here, and
What year did you come into this house?
years ago.
Years ago.
It was like a do-it-yourself job, you know. And it well built to a point, you know, there's no real finesse in it. And we come in, Gene stripped all of the rooms of its wallpaper. Excuse me, and underneath the wallpaper was like a royal blue, and another one was a red, and I mean it was like paint that would probably be used in factories, and, you know. But the guy was an electrician by trade, so he had it's still in, of course, a hodgepodge of wiring, and not as much as he was a gentleman that enjoyed his sloth. But he, you know, there's a lot of stuff missing. So anyway, all this stuff had this was all a wall or just a door way in there. And after I got it, I come in and we tried to make it more livable for us. the back bedroom used to be like a porch, you know, going the full length, the width of the house. So I had that, we sort of tore most of it out. And I had a couple carpenters come in and they framed up the room and put the windows in and stuff like that. I put a lot of the electrical in it, and I added baseboard plugs and you know, at that time I added to what was there, but I still didn't look to the future in any way, you know. So since I've been here, then you know, building for what was necessary. But they had Gene liked the stainless steel sink. And not too long ago, well, it was quite a while ago, 5 or 6 years ago, we had some work to do with tiling, and our son Gerard put the back tile on the wall. And of course I had to put a couple extra outlets for air conditioning and the sink, and we tried to put in the fail-safe type of.
Right.
But used to have a booth in the kitchen and no cupboards on this side. Had those all put in. Had all of the Youngstown kitchen cupboards refaced, left the cupboards, you know. But I come home from work and that is always something. And it was good, and the reason it's good is, in fact, I see people working around their homes, and I knew who the do-it-yourselfers were, and they'd be working away, and of course they'd always have a glum face, you know. But I tell them, don't feel bad. I said, this is good therapy for you. It's different than what you do every day. By the time I got through with them, I said, yeah, that's right. You know.
That's a good attitude.
Yeah, well, you have to. I mean, and to me, I understood that. I come home and I tore down the front porch, and the walk used to go through the center of the lawn, but I come home and sit and knock the concrete off the bricks, you know, and I wasn't a thrower awayer.
I heard. Let me just see where we are here.
And we are
Finished with this. This is done.
Yeah.
just on time.